50 early 20th century stereo views. I'm Brian DiMambro, and this lot of Keystone views is noteworthy because they all, well, 98% of them, begin with the prefix H, which is a very uncommon series in the ones that they issue, the different series. And this lot of cards includes some very specific events, historical events, with key players, key historical figures in them. This first one is the Cuban Republic's birth, which is pretty remarkable. Right here is the first president in history to participate in a public event on foot. Looks like Calvin Coolidge right there. It's Woodrow Wilson. That's it. It's Woodrow Wilson. And here's President Taft. I mean, in a stereoscopic viewer, it would be like being right there standing next to him. These all on the back have extensive commentary about the view. This is a great one of the U.S. Treasury building. I mean, taken with early automobiles in the front of it. That's a very great card. And look at this. President Taft touching the Golden Bell, which opened the flood through the at the Gunnison Tunnel in Montrose, Colorado in September of 1909. Look at this. Colonel Gothal's in charge of the Panama Canal, sitting at his desk. You might even be able to read some of those papers if you put it in a viewer. Look at this. The famous insurgent. I can't really read it that well because of the dark ink against the dark background, but it's very readable. But this is, oopsie. This is Aguinaldo, famous insurrecto, and his son in Manila, the Philippine Islands. Look at this one. Chief Justice Fuller administering the oath of office to President McKinley. It's like being there. Look at that one of William Jennings Bryan giving a speech right there. Here's one. Look at this. Wow. In Hawaii, shortly after being annexed to the United States with a streetcar. That's a great one. President Roosevelt standing addressing a crowd. I'm going to get my stereo viewer right now. Start looking at all these again. Main Street in Alaska. Look at that boardwalk, that signage, a beer hall. It's great. Main Street, Sheep Camp, Alaska. Look at this. This is great. Okay, some of China's troublemakers. Boxers. Look at that. Captured. Amazing. Look at this one. Lu Hongchang, China's greatest viceroy and diplomat. Oh, wow, that's great. Look at these guys here. Wow. There's Teddy Roosevelt right there. And what do we got here? Reading the war news in Chinatown, San Francisco. Look at that. These are great. Admiral and officers from the United States Fleet in Sydney, Australia. Here's Clara Barton sitting at a desk. Wow. Look at this. Unbelievable. The Wright airplane in flight, Fort Myer, Virginia. Right, I can't believe it. Here it is, right here. Look at this. Thomas Edison in his laboratory. Look at this crowd scene right here. This is fantastic. A suffragette parade, 1913, Washington, D.C. It's fantastic. Look at this. Booker T. Washington. Andrew Carnegie right there. Wow. Okay. Oh, look at this. John D. Rockefeller, the richest man in the world. To get some stereo cards of Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. Ex-President Roosevelt in the campaign of 1912. And yeah, look at that. Wow. Marconi, the genius of wireless telegraphy or telegraphs. And here we've got, look at this, President Roosevelt and the envoys of the Mikado and the Tsar of Russia on the Mayflower. Look at that. Erecting a 23-story steel skeleton for Times Building in New York. Whoa, that's fantastic. Japanese laborers in California. Wow, it talks about them back here. Yep. Look at this. Immigration law of 1924. No comment on that. Street peddlers' carts. Look at that in New York City. That's fantastic. And here's, admitted immigrants leaving Ellis Island. Can you imagine if one of your relatives was in that stereo view? What do you got here? Farewell at home. Emigrants for America. Yeah, Sweden. They're leaving Sweden. See, Sweden's sending us their finest. Immigrants just arrived, awaiting examination at Ellis Island. Okay. And here we have, oh, look, checking them for lice and diseases. Right, there we are. Right. Yeah. Oh, examining the eyes of immigrants. Right. That's right. I remember reading about that. Right, because you could be turned away if you had came in with lice or all sorts of diseases. A joint session of Senate and the Congress, Senate and the House rather. Colonel William Gorgas, sanitary officer of the Panama Canal Zone. Huh. Dr. Anna Howard Shaw, suffragette. She's one of the leaders. Calvin Coolidge, right there. Look at that. Like, jeez. And here's President Harding addressing the Boy Scouts in Montana. But he didn't tell them any yacht stories. Woodrow Wilson and his war cabinet. Herbert Hoover. Oh, look at that picture. That's unbelievable. And look at this street scene right here. Southampton, Mass. Oh, look at this. Wow, look at all that street activity. That's very interesting. Now, these final few cards I notice are not H cards, but they do have like diamonds and other features that indicate that they're supplemental cards or things like this. And this is a great one of the marketplace in Salisbury, England. And look at this great one with the automobiles and the early double-decker buses with signage on them. Look at that. That's great. That right there is London. And here is another one in downtown London with double-decker buses and streetcars. And now we're out looking at teepees of Native Americans in Montana. And here we're back to downtown London again with all kinds of streetcars and blah, blah. And we've got, oh, look, chained books of medieval times in the Minster Library in England. Oh, my, look at this. Look at these early biplanes. Chicago skyline. Look at that with all the early cars in the foreground. And the final card here is President Roosevelt sitting at his desk working. So, yeah, these cards are very nice. They're superior to many others of this vintage. And they're available as one lot online from me, Brian DeMambro.